What's going on, guys? Liam Wetter here, and I'm on a solo mission to try and catch some giant walleyes. So the cool thing about big walleyes is that they actually reach a certain point where they start to behave differently than the smaller schooling fish that you normally find. So I know roughly where they're gonna be, roughly what they're gonna be doing. So my only mission is to go out and try and find those fish. I'm gonna be spending a lot of time looking around, trying to mark individual fish. And the goal today is to sharpshoot. I got a pack of freeloaders. This is gonna be my moping bait, pack of mayors, if we need to cast them. But we're gonna try and mark individual fish that we know are big, key in on the big walleyes, and try and make something happen. I know there's big fish here, so I think it could be a good day. So the first step is to just motor around. What I'm looking for is the walleye structure that I know there are smaller schooling walleyes on, and I'm near it, and I'm looking for bait. Where there's bait, there's usually big fish, and so I have my screens going here. I'm keeping my eye on them. Whenever I see bait, I'm always looking close to the bait to see if there's a larger mark that's distinguishable. When you see clusters of bait, you're actually marking really small fish. And so a big walleye is going to show up significantly larger than the rest of the bait cluster. And I'm keeping my eye on that. The other thing is I always have my bail open ready to drop. My finger on the line, and I'm ready to drop. Anytime I see a fish, I'm in reverse right now. I like going in reverse, a little bit more control, back trolling, slower. And if I see a fish, I'm going to pop it into neutral, maybe pop it in forward, stop me dead, drop down right on the fish. I'm going to see my bait pull down on the screen, and then hopefully a big fish is just going to come up and munch it. So that's the plan. First step is to just motor around. I'm literally not going to be fishing. My bait's going to stay out of the water until I find a fish that I know I want to drop on. And the thing is, we're not just fishing for bites. We're fishing a fish that we see, and I'm going to try to catch that specific individual fish that I'm marking. The amount of bait along here is insane. It's you can see all the individual fish on here. But this is actually good because this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for suspended fish that are high up off the bottom and are near the bait. The thing about these big walleyes, if you're hunting specifically big walleyes, is once they reach a certain size, they actually now have the ability to go pelagic and eat a lot of these bait fish, similar to the way lake trout function. Obviously, they're not necessarily in lake trout waters, but they have access now to a food source that when they were smaller, they couldn't really target. So I'm not fishing for numbers right now, by any means, but what I'm doing is keeping my eyes on the screen, watching both of these screens here, and just motoring around. I'm using two-dimensional sonar to look down. This allows me to see exactly what's underneath the boat. And then I'm using live imaging to see in either direction of the boat, see what I'm coming up on. And then also you can pick out individual fish that are on the screen. So like I can tell right now, these are all small bait fish. On here, it just looks like a big clump. So right here, you might see a larger mark, and then you'll come over to 2D, and then I actually like using the two-dimensional sonar to play the fish. I just feel like it's a little bit more responsive, and you get a slightly larger, clearer read. So when the fish are directly underneath the boat, I actually shift my eyes over to the two-dimensional sonar, and then yeah, you mope them. That could be something behind us. So we're gonna motor over to that and see. But we're on the big fish hunt, so let's see what we can put together. So on our podcast, we recently had a conversation with Dr. Paul Cooley, who specializes in shiners. And one of the points that he made during our conversation was that these fish, actually walleyes, when they reach a certain size, they open up the potential to feed on larger pelagic food items. So unlike your walleyes that you'll find, the smaller eater-sized walleyes that you'll find on the humps or the flats or wherever you're finding schooling walleyes, these larger walleyes actually will reach a certain size and switch up their behavior entirely. They'll function like a different fish.
and they're not going to be far from your walleye structure, but what they are doing is they're now feeding on pelagic baitfish. Obviously, you'll stumble into large fish from time to time, and that happens to everybody. We've all caught big fish in schools of walleye, but if you want to target specifically large walleyes, what you need to do is you need to start thinking differently. You need to look for the bait. You need to look for the structure that the bait is using off of that structure. And then the walleyes, the big, large walleyes that now have the ability to feed on that food source are going to be out there. So there's not nearly as many. This isn't necessarily action-packed fishing the way that you're maybe used to fishing your humps, but I'm motoring around right now and I'm looking for suspended walleyes that are near bait. If I'm looking for bait, much like lake trout, obviously you're not going to your deep lake trout spots, but I'm just looking for the bait, and if you find the bait, look for larger marks. And often if it's near walleye structure, those are going to be your large walleyes. So like I said, it's not action-packed fishing. If you're keying in specifically on large fish, you know, if you implement this, I think you're gonna find out that there are probably a lot larger fish on the spots you're used to fishing than you would have previously known, and even in the system, your home system for that matter, because the big fish, once they grow to a certain size, they open up so much more potential and they take advantage of that potential. So I'm just trying to intercept them right now where those big fish are hungry and feeding and have the ability to forage on this large, abundant, and preferred food source.
So as you can see here, there's lots of bait up the shoreline here. It drops pretty quick. It's a steep wall up here, a steep bluff. And what I'm doing is I'm just literally going along the shore and looking. There's a ton of bait, and then eventually you'll literally just see like the mark on the bottom that's, you know, big, red, obviously a singular fish, as opposed to this stuff here that's just all clumped up. And so I'm just gonna keep going along the shoreline here until I mark something on the bottom, and we should be able to get a big one doing this. I'm using the freeloader. This is the Crush City freeloader, and it does a pretty good job at imitating what they're eating. Big. Oh, that's gonna be a big walleye. Oh, that's gonna be a big walleye. It's a big walleye. Ah, yes. Beauty. Oh my goodness. It's a giant walleye. It's a giant walleye. That's a giant walleye. That is a huge walleye. Oh. I saw him on the screen and I dropped the freeloader down to him. Look at this. This is what I've been after. Now this, ladies and gentlemen, it's a Northern Ontario walleye. Look at the size of her head. That fish is so long. I was going along this shoreline, saw a ton of bait, and I had the sonars running. I was on the 20 horse just back trolling up the shore, and saw this big mark, rolled up to it, dropped down, instant, boom, came up, smashed it. That is a beautiful Northern Ontario golden walleye. Let's let her go. There she goes. That's sick. Boom. I just saw a bunch of smallmouth boiling on the surface all around me. They were splashing. And I flipped my bait out, caught them, and then this is what they spit out. And so that's what's swimming around, and that's what the walleyes are targeting. The walleyes are targeting these. And they look to me like Cisco's actually. That's a telltale right there that they're feeding pelagic, even the smallmouth. And that's what we're keying in on. That's what the walleyes are keying in on. All right, guys, well, that's it for me today. I just went out for a couple hours in the evening, tried to get a big walleye. I hope you guys learned something. I mean, the main takeaway is that if you want to key in on large walleyes, there's a different strategy to do it. So implement it. You might find bigger fish on the spots you already fish, or you might find out that there's a lot bigger walleyes in your home bodies of water than you previously realized. So thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate you guys watching.